you knew Frank Sheeran. Frank Sheeran was depicted by Robert De Niro, if I'm not mistaken, in the Martin Scorsese Netflix film. How did you get to know Frank Sheeran?
Well, I got a call one day. I was doing medical legal work, medical malpractice, and I got a call one day from a guy who was representing the Philadelphia mob. And he told me that Frank Sheeran, who was the number one suspect in Hoffa's disappearance, and we all knew that, he'd been profiled in the New York Times and Newsweek as the suspect of in the presumed death of Jimmy Hoffa. And he was in jail for 32 years for labor racketeering, but he had developed some health problems, and they needed a medical lawyer to see if I could get him out on early parole based on his poor health. And I did that. And while he was in prison, he read a book of mine called The Right to Remain Silent that you mentioned, a book that is now in reissue. It just was re-released again a little while ago, but it first came out in 1988. And he read the book. It's a law and order book, and it's a pro-police book. It's got an interesting premise. And when he read that book, he sought me out when he got out of jail. And he told me that he wanted to write a book and he wanted me to write it for him. And I knew from my years of experience teaching interrogation that this was a man who wanted to be interrogated. Believe it or not, it's a common phenomenon of those who want to get something off their chest because they feel better when they do, and they really do, getting it off their chest. So he sought me out. He took me to lunch, said his cover story was he was tired of being written about in all the books on Hoffa as the suspect, and he wanted to tell his side of it, and he'd like me to write the book. And so I agreed to meet with him at his apartment outside of Philly in Springfield, Pennsylvania, and we spent 5 hours together. And during the course of that 5 hours, he admitted to far more than he had intended to. And when we were done for the night, he didn't want me back. and
man.
And 8 years later, he returned. His daughter Dolores, who appears in the movie, not the daughter appears in the movie, the character of the daughter appears in the movie, and she had taken him to St. Dorothy's Church in Springfield, outside of Philly, and had a private session with the Monsignor Heldesor, and he got absolution for his sins, but he still wanted to talk to me. He still had that original desire to say the words of that the priest doesn't ask. He may say to the priest, I committed the mortal sin of taking a man's life. Yeah. The priest doesn't say, who was he? What was it about? Give me more. Yeah. But he knew I did. So wow. He told his mafia buddies in the Philadelphia Angelo Bruno crime family and in the upstate Pennsylvania crime family of Russell Buffalino, he told everyone that I was going to write this book for him that cleared him. In the meantime, he knew that he was serially confessing to me. And we spent 5 years together with touring his soul and touring the mob. I got to be around some interesting characters because he was so respected. Whatever he said he was doing, that was okay with Russell and okay with whoever, Russell Buffalino, played by Joe Pesci in the movie.